After 10 years of silence, she discovered an incredible secret that transformed her life forever. The dusty attic smelled of old wood and forgotten memories as Sarah climbed the creaky steps. That evening, she had volunteered at the community church. Her mother's belongings needed to be sifted through. With every box she opened, layers of her past smothered her. But as she rummaged through the trunk, her heart raced when she found them. Letters, aged but still vibrant with stories of courage and defiance. These words were a lifeline from a grandmother she barely knew, a civil rights activist in a world so resistant to change. A shiver slid down her spine, igniting a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, her family's legacy wasn't lost after all. She held a letter to her chest, feeling the tingle of possibility. It spoke of love and truth, demanding justice in a world that often silenced it. In that moment, Sarah could almost hear her grandmother's voice urging her to rise, to stand tall even against the specters of prejudice that loomed large in Maplewood. The fight wasn't just for her or Mia, her bright-eyed daughter who deserved to thrive in a world that embraced her uniqueness. It was for a bond with family, torn by years of silence, that yearned for healing. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With newfound determination, Sarah decided this was her moment. She would organize a community event honoring her grandmother's legacy, weaving together stories of resilience and unity. As she worked tirelessly, her hands busy with flyers and phone calls, she noticed whispers at the diner, the very place that had been her lifeline. Old friends of her mother expressed excitement about the event. Others cast uncertain glances. Some even dared to question her choices, the years of distance gnawing like ants at the edges of their conversations. But the letters clutched in her hand buoyed her spirit. The day of the event arrived, and the community hall buzzed with anticipation. Sarah took a deep breath, the air thick with emotion as she stood beneath the soft glow of string lights, her heart pounding. She looked out at the gathered audience, the faces she remembered well, both supportive and skeptical. As she shared her grandmother's story, her voice tightened with emotion, challenging everyone to embrace love above prejudice. But just when the energy soared, someone from the back interrupted with a harsh voice, questioning Sarah's choices, her life decisions that led to a painful division. "Maybe if you hadn't chosen differently," they spat, "you wouldn't be standing here alone." The crowd gasped, tension crackling like static in the air. Sarah's heart raced as she felt the weight of old wounds. Anger and hurt collided in her chest, but she caught sight of Mia, the girl standing on the edge of the crowd with wide, innocent eyes, searching for reassurance. In that moment, clarity flooded Sarah. She knew she needed to speak for her, to claim the love and acceptance that hadn't been hers for a decade. Would they finally see her? Would she finally reclaim her family narrative, or would old wounds tear them apart even more? The hall felt like it was spinning. Sarah's pulse raced. All eyes were on her, waiting for her response. She took a shaky breath, her mind a flurry of thoughts, but one cut through the noise, Mia's face. That sweet, trusting gaze anchored her. "Alone," Sarah managed to voice, her tone catching in her throat. "I may have felt alone for a long time, but I'm not standing here in solitude. I'm here for love, a love that has stretched across decades, from my grandmother's heart to mine, and now into Mia's." The room shifted. Whispers morphed into murmurs of agreement mixed with doubt. She could see some fists clenching and backs straightening. Sarah pressed on, fueled by the memory of the letters still tucked close to her heart. "My grandmother fought for a world where everyone belongs, regardless of their past or their choices. Her legacy is one of courage, a call to rise above hate and misunderstanding. And it's time we do the same." A voice from the crowd shouted again, "But what about your mistakes? Who trusts you to lead us towards unity?" Each syllable rang uncomfortably. "Every mistake I made brought me closer to understanding," Sarah replied, her voice firm now. "I'm not defined by them, but rather how I choose to rise after them. I'm here to ask for a chance, not just for myself, but for everyone in this community. To forgive, to move forward together." She locked eyes with the heckler, seeing not just a man but a reminder of the past that could either chain her or empower her. She remembered her grandmother's words. "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." For a moment, silence wrapped around the room, thick and heavy. Sarah could feel the tension begin to wane as she searched the crowd, her gaze landing on familiar faces. Friends and neighbors she had grown up with, all caught somewhere between past grudges and potential amends. Then, Mia stepped forward, her small frame radiating strength. "I believe in Mom," she piped up, her voice clear and unwavering. "She teaches me to love people for who they are. And Grandma always said we should fight for what's right. I want that too." A ripple of surprise and admiration spread through the crowd. The air became charged with potential as Sarah watched her daughter's innocent bravery ignite a spark. Murmurs of support began to fill the space, and Sarah felt tears well in her eyes. This was the moment she had yearned for. Unity taking root in the very words spoken from the heart. "Together," Sarah said, her voice stronger now, "we can face the ghosts of our past. The hurt, the silence, all of it. You are not alone. Not anymore." A flicker of hope emerged as people started to nod, their skepticism giving way to something greater. Relationships broken by silence began to stitch back together, piece by piece. The man who had challenged her shifted, visibly affected, though still unsure. Sarah could see his defenses falter and the cracks begin to show. Maybe, just maybe, the seeds of understanding were taking root where anger had once thrived. As the night progressed, stories were shared, laughter began to bloom, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt part of something larger, a community slowly healing, thawing from the frost of mistrust. But as the applause echoed in the hall, a figure lingered in the shadows, someone she didn't recognize. He watched her closely, and when their eyes met, a chill ran down Sarah's spine. Had her grandmother's past come back to haunt her? What secrets lay buried in the silence she thought had been broken? The crowd buzzed around her, but all she could think was, who was this stranger, and what did he know? The applause faded slowly, replaced by a buzz of chatter that hung in the air. Sarah felt the warmth of hope coursing through her, yet that figure in the shadows drew her attention. Something about him felt familiar, yet unsettling. People began to approach her, their faces glowing with a newfound understanding. Old grievances dissolved as they stepped closer to share their stories, their struggles, their hopes. One neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, with tears glistening in her eyes, spoke of how she had been haunted by a loss she had never quite processed. Sarah listened intently, nodding, reassuring her that sharing pain was a part of healing. Each story shared in that room felt like a brick laid in rebuilding the wall they all had come to know. But the stranger remained in her peripheral vision, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her heart race. Was he judging, or was he waiting for the right moment to speak? She shook off her nerves and tried to focus on the conversation swirling around her. "Mia," Sarah called out gently, ignoring the stranger for now, "can you help me hand out the refreshments?" The distraction was welcome, and Mia nodded enthusiastically, bouncing off to help. As Sarah served cups of lemonade and cookies, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Happy faces were everywhere, united in a shared desire for community. But still, the gnawing curiosity about the stranger pulled at her. Finally, he approached her, moving through the crowd like a phantom. He was tall, with sharp features shadowed beneath a worn baseball cap. When he finally stood before her, the tension in his stance mirrored that of many faces she had seen in the past, people caught in the stranglehold of secrets and fears. "Sarah," he said, his voice steady but laced with something deeper, something visceral. "You don't know me, but I know your family. I've been looking for you." Her pulse quickened. "Why?" What do you want? She glanced back to where Mia was joking with Ms. Thompson, laughter spilling across the space. She yearned to protect her daughter from whatever storm this man could bring. I have something for you, he said, pulling a frayed envelope from his pocket. The sight of it made her freeze. It looked exactly like the ones her grandmother had treasured, filled with secrets, dreams, and maybe even regrets. What is it? She asked, a tremor in her voice. The room felt smaller as she held her breath, waiting. He stepped closer, his shadow merging with hers. It's a letter from your grandmother, one she wrote before. He hesitated, searching for the right words. Before everything changed. The words hit her like a wave, both exciting and terrifying. The past that had shaped her efforts to forge a new future suddenly crackled to life before her very eyes. Why do you have it? She pressed, struggling to keep the tremor from her voice. I found it tucked away in my possession after she passed, he said, grimacing slightly. There's more to her story than you know. It's something you might want to hear. As she watched him, a tidal wave of emotions crashed over her. Fear, excitement, dread. The evening that had felt like a turning point suddenly felt tainted by shadows of the past creeping back in. What secrets could the letter hold? Could this be the key to understanding her grandmother's legacy, or the chain that would bind her once more? Mia's laughter faded into the background as Sarah stared into the stranger's eyes, bracing herself for a revelation that could change everything. What truth lay hidden in her grandmother's words, and how would it alter her fight for unity? Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she looked from the stranger to the envelope he held. It felt like some cosmic riptide was pulling her back to a time long buried. The warmth of the community gathering swirled around her, but her focus was locked on the man's intense gaze. What do you mean there's more to her story? She finally managed to ask. The stranger took a deep breath as if steeling himself for what came next. Your grandmother was involved in things you might not understand, he said, and his words hung heavy between them. Things that could change how you see her, and your family's history. Things like what? She said, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. The laughter from the other room felt distant now, as if she was staring at another world altogether. He hesitated again, his brow furrowing. She was part of a community project that never came to light, a group dedicated to bringing about change, healing, understanding. But it spiraled out of control, and she was swept up in it all. I think she wanted to protect you from the fallout. Fear and confusion intertwined within her. Did she truly want to unearth more? After years of forging a new path, was she ready to face secrets that could shake the very foundation she stood on? Mia deserves to know about her, Sarah whispered, glancing over to where her daughter was still happily chatting. But I need time to process this. I have to make sense of it. The man nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. I get it. It's a lot to unload. Here. He extended the envelope toward her, his fingers brushing against hers as she took it. The weight of it felt heavier than its physical presence, a small portal to a past she'd never fully grasped. I should go, he said, backing away slowly, like a ghost retreating into the shadows from which he'd emerged. But I'll be around, whenever you're ready to talk. Sarah watched him as he slipped back into the crowd, his presence lingering like a wisp of smoke. She felt the envelope burning in her palm, the anticipation and dread coiling tightly in her gut. She wanted to tear it open then and there, but fear of what it might contain paralyzed her. Mia skipped over just then, looking up at her mother with bright eyes. Mom, can we play the game now? Everyone's waiting. Sarah nodded, forcing a smile. But the anxiety clung to her like a damp coat. Sure, she said, though her mind was thousands of miles away, drifting between the envelope and her grandmother's secret life. And as they joined the flurry of laughter and cheers, it felt like holding a sparkler in the midst of a bonfire. Thrilling, yet daunting. But why did secrets, once freed, often bring light along with them? With her heart still racing, she couldn't shake the feeling that the next few moments would be pivotal, that the decision to confront her past would alter the very fabric of her present. As the night wore on, The festive atmosphere acted like a balm, but the restlessness inside her wouldn't settle. Soon enough, she would have to choose. Would she summon the courage to uncover the truth, or would fear supersede her hope for understanding? And little did she know that the letter, its words written in her grandmother's hand, would call upon more than just memories. It would challenge everything she thought she knew. In that moment of revelry, a flicker of uncertainty gnawed at her heart. What if the truths waiting inside the envelope led her down a path she couldn't bear to walk? What would happen when she read those words? The laughter and cheers from the gathering swirled around Sarah like a kaleidoscope, vibrant yet discordant with her racing thoughts. Mia was already pulling her toward a game, her little hand warm and insistent, as if her spirit could chase away Sarah's worries. Yet Sarah felt anchored by the envelope, a weight that tugged at her heart and mind. "Ready, Mom?" Mia chirped, her excitement contagious, though Sarah's smile felt forced. "Sure, honey," she replied, kneeling to meet her daughter's gaze. The innocence in Mia's eyes only deepened the chasm in Sarah's heart. What kind of history lay hidden beneath the surface, ready to upend their lives? As the game began, Sarah found her thoughts wildly flitting. The envelope still burned in her pocket, a tangible reminder of buried secrets. Each laugh and shout echoed around her, but her ears strained to listen for the whispers of the past. She could see the stranger again, standing amidst the happy chaos, the envelope a promise and a warning at once. That restless, uneasy feeling churned within her like a storm. Maybe she was being foolish for letting a stranger's words shake her so deeply, but something told her that uncovering her grandmother's truth might lead to answers about her own life. Would it explain the ways her grandmother had tried to mold the very fabric of their family, laying silent foundations that she could never quite understand? "Mom!" Mia's voice pulled her back, her daughter's face scrunched in concentration as she tried to guess something. The light of the gathering dimmed under the shadow of Sarah's overwhelming thoughts. Here they were, anchored in joy, yet Sarah felt the ripples of something deeper threatening to break the surface. "Right. Is it a thing?" Sarah stammered, missing the moment while she replayed snippets of the stranger's words in her head, the part about wanting to protect her from the fallout. Why hadn't her grandmother shared these stories? What was so harrowing that it demanded silence? "I think so," Mia beamed, obviously thrilled by her mom's return to the game. Barely recovering from the whirlwind of emotions, Sarah felt herself being swept back to the laughter, the ease of the moment. But it was fleeting, like trying to capture smoke with bare hands. As the game progressed, bursts of laughter erupted around her, and for a moment, Sarah found solace in the sounds of love and connection. She watched Mia's face light up with each new guess, a reminder of the simple joys that kept their lives rooted in the present. Yet in the back of her mind, the envelope loomed larger, a promise of illumination shadowed by the threat of darkness. Finally, after what felt like ages of laughter and distraction, Sarah took a deep breath. "Hey, sweetheart, how about we take a little break?" Mia tilted her head, curiosity in her bright eyes. "Okay, can we get some snacks?" "Absolutely," Sarah replied, with a newfound determination warming her heart. They stepped away from the crowd, and as she reached for the envelope in her pocket, the familiar weight felt like it was hammering against her sanity. "What's that, Mom?" Mia pointed at her hand. "Just something I need to look at," Sarah murmured, feeling the envelope's edges slightly crinkle against her skin. Mia's eager expression faded into concern. "You okay?" "Yeah, I will be," Sarah promised, but her voice trembled under the weight of her uncertainty. She watched a nearby family laughing, and their warmth was like a flicker of light in a darkened room. What if opening that envelope unraveled their lives? What if what lay inside was far worse than she'd imagined? With her heart racing, Sarah made a choice. "Let's head home, Mia." Mia nodded, still not fully understanding the tension. As they walked away, Sarah felt a strange mix of relief and dread settling over her. She wanted to face the truth, but was she ready to embrace the unexpected legacy of a grandmother she barely knew? As they stepped closer to their car, Sarah's heart thudded with a single thought. What if this truth altered everything she believed about her family, or worse, herself? The journey home was going to be longer than she anticipated, and when they arrived, A storm of emotions awaited her. In a few moments, she would finally unveil what had been hidden for so long, but would it bring her peace or deepen the scars of the past? As they settled into the car, Sarah's pulse quickened. The interior felt both familiar and alien, stuffed with echoes of Mia's laughter from previous drives. Today, though, it felt heavy, punctuated by the silence of their muted conversation. Mia fiddled with her seatbelt, oblivious to the tumult brewing inside her mother. "Are we going to have snacks at home?" Mia asked, her voice cutting through Sarah's racing thoughts. "Of course. We'll make the biggest snack plate ever," Sarah replied, forcing a smile. The thought of food felt unappealing, but she would play the part for Mia's sake. As the car rolled through the streets, the world outside blurred into the backdrop of her swirling thoughts. The vibrant colors of houses and parks were lost on her. All she could see was the envelope, the whispering doubt it carried. Pulling into their driveway, Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for the moment that awaited. She felt like an explorer before an uncharted territory. One step could lead to discovery, or it could plunge her into turmoil. "Mom, you okay?" Mia's innocent inquiry broke her reverie again. "Just tired, I guess," Sarah said, trying to shake off the weight settling on her shoulders. She watched as Mia hopped out of the car, her small frame filled with unyielding optimism. Inside the house, the familiar sense of home surrounded them like a warm hug, even if it felt faintly suffocating. Sarah's gaze fell on the living room table where they usually crafted, colored, and created memories. Tonight, instead of playful arts and crafts, she felt the tension in the air thick as fog. Mia darted to the kitchen, her bright laughter bubbling as she reached for cereal. While her daughter busied herself with snacks, Sarah hesitated near the couch, staring at the envelope still firmly in her pocket, as if it were a piece of her own identity. "Can you help me pour this? I can barely reach," Mia called, tugging at Sarah's heartstrings. The invitation snapped her back to the present, and she walked over, pouring a heaping mound of cereal into a bowl. "Do you want milk?" she asked, but her mind was elsewhere. "Yes," Mia replied, her eyes shimmering with excitement. As she turned to grab the milk from the fridge, Sarah felt the envelope shift in her pocket. A rush of panic surged within her. The envelope could unravel everything. Could her daughter's laughter still echo after the revelation? She poured the milk, her hands trembling slightly. "Hey, Mia," she began, swallowing hard. "Do you remember the stories I told you about Grandma?" "Yeah, the ones where she went dancing in the old days," Mia replied, her smile widening. "Right, but there are other things I haven't told you." Sarah paused, the weight of her own hidden secrets heavy against her heart. "Like what?" Mia asked, curiosity lighting her eyes. Sarah took a deep breath, the words teetering on the edge of her tongue. The thoughts raced. Could she pull Mia into this web of history, this journey of the unexpected? Like things that could change how we see our family, you know? Mia's expression morphed into concern, and it reminded Sarah of how fragile understanding could be. "Is it a bad thing?" "I don't know yet," Sarah admitted, her voice shaky. In that moment, the tension seemed to thicken, stretching between them like a fragile thread. Would she truly unwrap this truth in front of her daughter, knowing it could reshuffle their world? As they sat at the kitchen table, 2 bowls of cereal between them, Sarah finally pulled out the envelope. The sight of it felt monumental, like a countdown to a revelation that could either liberate or destroy them. With shaking fingers, she opened it, heart jammed against her ribcage. Mia leaned closer, eyes wide as the mystery began to unfold. Sarah glanced at her daughter, and then back at the paper, uncertain of what awaited them on the other side. But what she didn't expect was the photograph tucked inside, a glimpse into a past that held secrets even darker than she had imagined. Sarah pulled the photograph from the envelope, her breath catching in her throat. It was an old image, faded and creased along the edges, capturing a moment that seemed worlds away from her current life. The picture showed a woman with wild curly hair, laughing beside a man who bore a striking resemblance to Mia. The vibrant colors of the scene screamed joy, but it was the tagline written on the back that caught her eye. Forever Family. Anxiety coiled tightly in her stomach as startling realizations washed over her. "Who's that?" Mia asked, peering over curiously. Sarah stumbled over her words, her heart racing as she tore her gaze from the photo. "She's a part of our family. Is she, Grandma?" Mia's eyes sparkled with wonder, oblivious to the turmoil swirling around her mother. Before Sarah could respond, the room began to spin, enveloped in a haze of confusion and dread. She felt cornered, as if every choice led to a fork in the road she wasn't sure was safe to travel. Memories of laughter past, faded into darkness, as dread overpowered her optimism. "No, sweetheart. She's someone I never knew well." The truth clawed its way up her throat, but shame held it back. "Why does she look like us?" Mia's voice was a melody mingled with innocence, but pain thrummed in Sarah's chest. The resemblance was undeniable. Each feature, each sparkle in her eyes mirrored in Mia's small face. Taking a deep breath, Sarah steadied herself. She needed to be honest for Mia. But how could she explain a lifetime of secrets, riddled with complexities? Each second felt heavier, as time passed in agonizing slow motion. It's complicated." "Complicated how?" Mia asked, now in full detective mode, leaning forward in her chair, her brow furrowing. "Sometimes family isn't what we think it is," Sarah whispered. Her voice wavered, but she forced herself to speak. "People can mean something different than what we believe." Confusion danced in Mia's eyes, and in that moment, Sarah wished more than anything to rewind time, to shield her daughter from the truth and its potential fallout. "We'll talk about it, I promise," she added, hoping to satisfy her daughter's endless questions with just a sliver of reassurance. Mia nodded, her expression brightening just a fraction. "Okay, but can we have cookies too?" "Sure, cookies sound great." It was the slightest flicker of relief in a storm of doubts, but it would work. Mia always had a way of pulling her back into the light, even when shadows loomed closer. After serving up the sugary treats, Sarah tried to push the weight of the photograph aside, determined to focus on the glowing smile of her daughter, savoring the fleeting moments of childhood. Yet the photograph sat, an unwelcome guest in her mind, echoing unanswered questions and unvoiced fears. What else lay hidden in the shadows of the family's past? As she watched Mia nibble on her cookie, her innocence burned bright against Sarah's heartache. But deeper secrets awaited, and she knew she couldn't delay the inevitable forever. "Mia," she said, her voice quieter now. "Promise you won't be scared when we dig deeper." Those words hung between them, a fragile thread that could hold or fray. When Mia nodded, her eyes were filled with trust, and it both frightened and strengthened Sarah. Tomorrow would come with more revelations, more darkness to unearth. As Sarah gazed into Mia's bright eyes, she felt the impending weight of that unknown future begging for her attention. What secrets would they uncover together, and which ones might forever change the way they saw each other? The morning sunlight crept through the kitchen window, casting warm beams across the table where Mia had spilled her cookie crumbs. There was something about the glimmer of that light that felt almost unreal to Sarah, an artificial layer spread over the disquiet still simmering in her heart. She set her coffee cup down with a shakiness that betrayed her. "Mia, you ready for school?" she called, trying to keep her voice bright. It didn't break through the swirling storm inside her. The photograph loomed large in her thoughts, the joyful laughter of the woman echoing back to her from an era she had built walls around. "Yeah!" Mia bounced into the room, her hair wild and untamed, echoing the woman in the photo. It was uncanny. Sarah shook her head, forcing herself to focus. "Eat your breakfast. We have a big day ahead." She wanted to believe it as much as she said it. As they walked to school, hand in hand, Mia chattered endlessly about her dreams of being an astronaut. "I'll fly past the moon and discover new planets, Mom," she declared, eyes shining with ambition. "That sounds amazing," Sarah replied, but a weight settled deeper with each spark of Mia's dreams. Would the truth about their family be something that would crush her daughter's spirit? Was it a burden Mia would carry when she learned that not all families were the same? Suddenly, a distant bell rang from the school, pulling them out of their imaginations. "You'll have the best day, I promise." Mia turned to her, uncertainty flickering across her face. "What happens if I get scared?" Sarah knelt down, meeting her daughter's gaze. "Then you remember, whose heart do you have? Who's always with you?" Mia smiled. "You. And I'm brave. Just like you." Taking a steady breath, Sarah watched her stride confidently into the building, her little figure swallowed by the crowd of children, innocence bursting from every corner. But that innocence would soon pierce through the veil of hidden truths. With Mina at school, the world around Sarah transformed. Reality sank back into focus, and the weight of the photograph grew heavier. She reached for her phone, fingers trembling as she opened her contacts, staring at a name from years gone by. Aunt Liz. Liz had always seemed like the mysterious keeper of family secrets. In a moment of determined clarity, she dialed the number, heart pounding as the phone rang. Each tone echoed in her mind, a connection that had been dormant, waiting for the right moment to spark back to life. Finally, Liz picked up. "Sarah, it's been ages." The familiar voice wrapped around her, yet it sent shivers down her spine. This was it, the moment she dared to unleash. "Hi, Liz. I found something." "What did you find?" Liz's tone shifted, sharper now, probing. Inhaling deeply, Sarah swallowed her nerves. "There's a photograph. A woman. She looks like me. And Mia. I need to know. Who is she?" A moment of silence stretched out, filled with secrets pressing against both of them. "I thought it was buried for good," Liz finally murmured, and it hit Sarah like a jolt. "What does that mean?" The question hung in the air, urging Liz to continue. "Sometimes family stories are more complicated than we tell," Liz said softly. Trepidation wrapped around Sarah's heart. If her Aunt Liz knew more, it was time to unearth everything, to no longer avoid the shadows. "Can we meet?" Sarah asked, determination crystallizing in her voice. "Yes, but prepare yourself," Liz warned. Those words sent chills down her spine, twisting both fear and resolve within her. What kind of truths were waiting to be unraveled? What could change everything she thought she knew about herself and Mia? As Sarah hung up the phone, one thing became clear. Tomorrow could be the day everything unraveled, and she needed to be ready to embrace the storm. What hidden scars would they unearth? And how deep did the family's secrets really run? The next morning dawned, duller than Sarah had hoped. Thick clouds blanket the sky, a gray warning of the emotional storm she anticipated. The coffee brewed steadily, its rich aroma struggling to pull her from the vortex of anxiety. With Mia still in bed, Sarah busied herself with mundane tasks, yet her mind was on a frantic loop. Could she handle what Liz would reveal? Each tick of the clock heightened her sense of dread, as if time itself was mocking her. She felt a stirring in her gut. Secrets had a way of twisting the truth. Their roots ran deep, entangled with pain and loss. When Mia finally wandered into the kitchen, still half asleep, her small presence felt like a balm. "Mom, can we go to the park after school?" She yawned and rubbed her eyes, oblivious to the turmoil wrapped around her mother's heart. "Of course, sweetie," Sarah replied, forcing a smile. "We'll have a fun day." But wouldn't the weight of her hidden truth become a shadow over their time together? The thought gnawed at her. After breakfast, Sarah managed to drop Mia off at school, a ritual that had once filled her with warmth now tinted with fear. Watching her walk away, her little backpack bouncing with each step, Sarah felt as if she were losing pieces of her the further Mia went. What if the day brought nothing but heartbreak? What if Mia's bright future dimmed just because of her background? The walk back home felt endless. She clutched the strap of her bag, wanting to squeeze it tight enough to ground herself. The photograph burned in her memory, a reminder of a life partly hidden, partly unknown. By the time Sarah reached the front door, she resolved to face Liz and whatever revelations awaited. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, steeling her nerves as she grabbed her phone. But moments passed, each one more agonizing than the last as she paced. Finally, she pulled up Liz's number, tapping it with trembling fingers before sucking in a hard breath. "Hey, I'm here," Liz answered. Her voice was a familiar comfort, yet filled with something heavier today. a blend of concern and curiosity, as if she held the very weight of Sarah's anxieties. "I'm on my way," Sarah replied, determination finally cleaving through her uncertainty. The cafe they chose was a small, cozy spot, filled with the warm scent of baked goods and fresh coffee. As she pushed open the door, she was swallowed by the chatter of other patrons, yet the noise faded away as Liz came into view. Liz had aged, though her spark remained. It glimmered in her eyes, but her expression carried a grave seriousness. Anxiety poured over Sarah like an icy wave, leaving her flesh prickling with a sense of foreboding. "Thanks for coming," Liz said softly when Sarah reached her table. "Let's just get to it," Sarah urged, her voice low but steady. "I need answers. The photograph. I need to know everything." Liz's gaze softened, and she took a breath that felt heavy with years. "There are things you might not want to hear," she cautioned. "What could be worse than the silence?" Sarah shot back, her heart pounding. The air thickened between them, charged with anticipation. As Liz opened her mouth to speak, she hesitated, her brows knitting together. "It's about your mother, Sarah, and what really happened to her." Those words pierced through the cloud that had enveloped Sarah since that fateful morning. She could barely process it, mind racing toward unanswered questions and emotional uncertainties. What do you mean?" Panic began to swell within her chest. Could this be the moment everything shifted? "Come on," Liz whispered. "I'll explain everything, but you need to listen and brace yourself." With her heart hammering in her chest, Sarah leaned closer, ready to unearth the buried truth about her family. What was she about to discover? Would it change everything she believed about her past and her daughter's future? As Sarah leaned in, the world around her blurred into a dull hum. She felt time stretching, each second expanding into an eternity. Liz's eyes held a mixture of pain and urgency, as if she carried a burden heavier than stones. "It all started when you were a child," Liz began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your mother was involved in something powerful. She was really a part of a movement, but it didn't end well." "What do you mean?" Sarah's heart raced, confusion and dread intertwined. The currents of her mother's past were beginning to surface, and she was terrified of the tide. "Your mother wanted to change things in Maplewood. She wanted a safer place for you, a place where people wouldn't fear each other because of their differences," Liz explained, the lines on her face deepening. "But not everyone was ready for that change. They pushed back. Hard." Sarah felt ice slide down her spine. Images of a younger version of her mother flitted through her mind, spirited and determined, yet also shadowed by fear. "What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. Liz took a shaky breath. "There was a confrontation. An awful incident. Your mother stepped in to protect someone who was being threatened. But the people who were resisting threw violence back at her side." Fear draped itself around Sarah as she listened, desperate to absorb Liz's words. Was she hurt? "She survived, Sarah," Liz assured her quickly. "But it left scars that she bore in silence. It changed her. It made her want to distance herself from the community she once sought to uplift." Why didn't she tell me? The question was a desperate plea. Why couldn't she share that? "That's who I am, part of that fight." Tears glistened in Liz's eyes. "She thought she was shielding you from all the hurt, all the pain. In her mind, staying silent was to protect you, to keep you from the battles she faced." Guilt and anger bubbled within her. The thought of her mother carrying such a heavy load alone churned her insides. "So I've been fighting in the dark, trying to honor a legacy she thought she was erasing?" Liz nodded slowly, her features somber. "There was so much love behind her choice to step back, but it led to silence and misunderstanding. And now, you've found the truth. A truth you both needed." Sarah felt the walls shaking around her, each revelation rattling her core. "And Mia, what will I tell her?" "That is for you to decide," Liz replied gently, placing a hand over Sarah's trembling one. "Share the history. Let her know her grandmother was brave. Use your voice to reshape the narrative." As the words settled over Sarah, she could feel a swell of strength rising within her. Her voice had power, one that could reach generations. It would begin with love, honesty, and the courage her ancestors had embodied. Suddenly her phone buzzed on the table, snapping her back into the present. It was from Mia. "Can't wait to tell you what I learned today." A radiant smile broke through Sarah's tears, and in that moment, she felt a sense of clarity. The past no longer held her captive. "Thank you, Liz," she whispered, realizing their talk had ignited a fire in her soul. "Go to her," Liz encouraged, her eyes shining with pride. "You're ready to embrace your grandmother's legacy, and now, you can forge a path forward." Sarah rose, the gravity of her family's history still echoing in her heart, but she now felt fueled with purpose. "I will, and I'll tell Mia everything, no more hiding." As she stepped outside, the sky had cleared, vibrant sunlight bathing the street in warmth. Sarah shielded her eyes from the brightness and took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of community around her. Arriving home, she held the photograph tightly in her hands. Each creased line now felt like a thread binding her to a stronger future. "Mia!" she called, her voice cutting through the silence, filled with an urgency she hadn't felt before. Mia emerged from her room, her small frame vibrant and whole, beaming with the purity of childhood. "Hey, Mom, I loved what I learned today." "I need to share something important too," Sarah said, kneeling down to meet her daughter's gaze, feeling a connection that was undeniable. "Okay, I'm ready." Mia grinned, her innocence contagious. "Just know that our family is filled with brave, strong women who fought hard for love and acceptance," Sarah began, feeling tears of gratitude spring to her eyes. "And now, it's time for us to carry that legacy forward together." As Sarah embraced her daughter, an overwhelming sense of purpose washed over her. This was their moment, a new chapter that would be built on the truth, empowered by love, a transformation that would resonate through Maplewood. Under the fading sun, they would weave their own stories, hand in hand, nurturing a future bright with hope and unity. And as they took their first steps into the light, Sarah felt a joy blooming within her heart, one that whispered of possibility and newfound connection. Now was the time for transformation. You need to subscribe now to never miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button immediately to feed the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait, not even one more second, to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation.